Hello, Accelerators organization. This is Jonathan Haberkorn, and let me just make sure we are connected here. All right, fantastic. Very good. Okay, so super happy to be here, part of Accelerators organization, AO Squared Mentor, and I'm here to help answer some of the questions that have been coming in as part of your journey to getting to 7 figures. So a little bit about myself. I am a product of AO Accelerators organization. I've joined years ago, listened to my mentors, got really engaged in asking questions, and that's really helped me out quite a bit to get to this next level in my business. I've since graduated out of the AO group and moved into AO Squared, where I'm working on the next level of my business. And it's just been an absolute incredible journey, and it's my honor to be here to give back the same way that my mentors have given to me, and hopefully we can help accelerate your journey as well. I understand there's some new people that have joined within AO, so I want to give a quick introduction of myself. I'm Jonathan Haberkorn, based out of Naples, Florida. I run a company doing enterprise application software. Basically, we help companies with their systems, their processes, and their people operating models, which are the core aspects of scaling a business. And we've been doing that to date for a little over a decade, but really seriously in the last 5 to 6 years as I went into the business full time. So it's been an incredible journey. We're doing some awesome work with great clients, everything from mostly enterprise companies in the Fortune 500 space. However, we are working with organizations of all sizes, and there's a commonality amongst them. You know, the core aspects are the same. It's just different levels, different magnitudes. And so the same principles will apply as I'm communicating to you about the answers on your questions. Okay? So, with that, enough about me. I want to help you on your journey here. So let's jump into these questions right away. Okay, so the first question has come in from Nick Van Treese. And the question is there a process or an easy way to get better knowledge or a hold on my business expenses? A little bit about the background of the company. I have a vehicle wrap business. I feel like I'm everywhere, and everywhere I turn, I'm paying money for X and Y and never really making progress at actually understanding where I'm at financially. Okay, and he goes on to say he's just hired a full-time contractor to help, so that's an important step in growth in the business. Great. I feel like I'm all over the place when it comes to being financially responsible, always paying for whatever comes up, and am spending more than I'm bringing in right now for revenue. It's a very fearful position to be in, and I don't know how to break that cycle. I don't operate on a lot of cash, usually under X amount. Okay. All right, so it sounds like you already have some awareness, which is the first part, being aware that you've got to pay attention to certain aspects of your business, right? So you said that you're spending more than you're making, so that tells me already that there is some degree of awareness that's going on there, but and it's come up in a fearful way because you know you need to pay attention to that, and you need to monitor it and be a steward of that asset, basically. And so that's the first aspect. You're aware that you need to be tracking this in a better way. And so how do you get a strong grasp on those business finances? In my experience, I think of the finances as a function of a business. In the early stages of a business, we're wearing all these different hats. You've got your sales, you've got your marketing, your HR, because you got to do hiring. Another function of that is the finances, to make sure everything is being taken care of appropriately, right? And so while we are wearing many hats at a bigger size company, these are kind of different functions, or different people doing these functions. So one of the ways that you can get a grasp on this is really think about this. Even though you're wearing probably a lot of the same hats, and maybe it feels blurred across all of these, you're just doing all of them, but think about it more compartmentalized, in that you've got a function going on for each one of these aspects of your business: your finances, your sales, the way that you're doing your marketing, your hiring with HR, any legal component that you have. These are the core aspects of the business. So I look at it in that way, and within each one of those silos or business areas, we have KPIs that we want to monitor. In this case, you're talking about the finance piece, but this question could apply to any one of those business areas. All right, how do I monitor and track to make sure that we're going in the right direction? Finance is such a core aspect of business, because without generating revenue, it's pretty hard to sustain a business, and eventually it will, cease to exist if you don't pay attention to the way that the finances are being taken care of. So how do you do that? So there's a couple things that you can do, or at least what I do. I think about it as a function in my business, and I have metrics that I want to track on that. Specifically, you've got your standard operating capital, your expenses, and you've got your sales coming in, assets and liabilities. There's software, there's tools that you can use, like QuickBooks. Even if you haven't gone that far yet, just simply looking at your bank statements, having one consolidated view. That's the tech side, the system side, to being able to track all of this, and ideally being able to do this in a more automated way. There's plenty of tools that exist to help with that. Depending on the stage of your business, I would recommend that you have some kind of accountant and you're meeting with them on a regular basis. I understand if it's a super early part of your business, you may not have all of that yet, but there will be a point where you need to, and probably sooner than later, such that you're being compliant with all the regulations that you got to keep up with. There's taxes and other things. So that's one side. The system side of it. The process side of it is, how often are you reviewing these? Can you put this on your calendar to at least monthly take a look at that, right? So end of the month, or however long it takes to kind of reconcile what has happened in the last 30 days. I usually do it in like the second week of the following month, where I'm looking back. So that way I can understand, where are we at, how are we tracking. And so the process side of this is having that on my calendar. It's scheduled. I know I need to be there. I know the importance of continuing to track this, so I carve time out of my schedule to make sure that that's happening. Okay. And then the last piece of this is the people side of it. So who needs to be involved? It sounds like you maybe want an accountant there. At minimum, you need to show up to that meeting for yourself so you can track it. But ideally, if you have an accountant that's managing at least some portion of that, you can show up to the meeting with them, and they should talk over, how things are going. That's somewhat like an accountability partner. Now, if you need something beyond that, I would say having an accountability partner that's going to check in with you to make sure that you're doing that and you're building that habit, that could be, another way for you to be able to get going on that. If you have to report that out to somebody, it's just something about human nature. We tend to do better when we know we have a responsibility to somebody else. And for whatever reason, sometimes until we build that habit ourselves, that can be a very helpful way to get there. Okay. All right, so hopefully that's helpful for you. So think about it from the system perspective. What tools am I using to track this? Ideally in a more automated way. What's the process? How often am I going to meet? If I can do it, every other week, great. At minimum, once a month, you need to be looking at that. And then lastly is the people side of it. Who needs to be there? Who do I need to connect with? How do we need to manage it? Do I need some accountability from someone? So that way I can build that habit and be consistent with it. Look, after doing that for like 3-4 months in a row, the habit gets there. And then, it's just like a regular pattern of what you're doing in your business to make sure that it's going to be successful. Okay? All right. So let's move to the next question. All right. We have a question from Bhushan. And the question is, I'm creating a software product. Should I wait for the product to complete, or should I first check the interest in the market? Okay. Background is the product is basically a web app which brings all of your communication in one place. I also have other plans for tracking daily tasks and routine planning. How should I go about it? First, get the people's interest piqued, or create a basic working product, then go to market and invest in marketing. Okay, so there's a couple different ways I want to tackle this question. And so the question being, should I wait for a product to complete, or first check the interest in the market? There are so many questions that I have about this, because I think I got to know a little bit more about where you are in the whole journey. So some of the follow-up questions that I would have for you is, what problem are you trying to solve for, and who? So defining, do you have clarity around who your target market is? Okay, so even if you're trying to pique the interest, who is the right audience in which you would try to pique that interest? Is there a market big enough for this type of tool, right? So even without even going and interacting with people, you can get data. There's plenty of just researching around on the internet. I'm sure that you can find what size of market is this that might need this type of tool. Okay, just to gut check, first of all, is there a big enough market that this makes sense for me to even attack and build this type of product? And what type of competition is there already for this product, right? Because what you're going to need to do is understand, what are they doing, how are you building this different than what they are doing, and then really dig into that as part of the way of piquing the interest. So understanding what the competition is doing, how you're differentiating that. And the other question that I have is, going to market means that there should be some revenue that you're going to get. What is the revenue model that you're going to have with this type of tool, right? Is it going to be a monthly subscription, or is it going to be free, and then you'll have some advertising, or maybe a freemium model plus, so what does that look like? And being clear about, what that is. I think if I understood a little bit more, I could probably answer this question a little bit better, but I think the essence of the question that you're asking is, how do I manage the risk of overspending before knowing that there's going to be a strong demand, right? Because in essence, you don't want to just go put a bunch of money into a product and then find out, there's not enough demand for it. So how do you manage that risk of overspending before knowing there's going to be a strong demand? There are some low-cost options about approaching that. Okay? First of all, without spending any money at all, I would do research on the competition and be very clear about what it is that your tool is going to solve different than what the other tools are. I'd have a full market analysis. Like, let's say there's 5 different products that are out there. Each one of these 5 I would have all criteria and measure against them. What are the functions that they have? Who has what? And then you have a nice view of what that marketplace is currently, the different tools that exist. And then next, you'd inventory what you're going to do. At minimum, you probably want to have similar features, but you can't be just another repeat of some other product that's out there, right? Especially if they've already gone through the growth stage and they're farther along the journey. You're going to need to find what your differentiator is going to be, and the best way to do that. And again, all of this does not cost you anything except for your time. Is create a simple inventory of that, and then compare that against what you're going to build, so that way it's very clear for the next step, which is also a very low cost option. And again, how to manage the risk and making sure there's enough demand before you spend too much. I would create a basic website with information about these features and being very clear about what your problem statement is. You don't have to spend a ton of money building out an elaborate website. You just need an informational type of page where it's got what your problem statement is, how you're solving this problem better than others, and on there, if you can, if it's cost effective, have some very basic UI mock-ups. Just something, you don't have to build a whole product. You don't even need a minimum viable product. All you need to do is have information there with some kind of visual about why this is going to be better, and it from the people's perspective that you're going to share this with, they'll get an idea about that, and that can start to pique the interest and understanding demand. You can have on that page a very simple sign up where it's just a form. They can, for anybody that is interested, you can start gathering up that contact information, just their name and their email, something very basic like that. And then once you have this page built, I would go to as many online platforms as possible, and whether it's Facebook groups or Reddit groups or forums, I would go to as many as possible where you might find the target market here, and start posting as much as I can over a month period, 2-month period, or potentially even more, to see are you driving traffic to the site, and are people signing up? Because what I would do with that is I would set that certain threshold before I go spend a bunch of money and build out this minimum viable product. I can get to understand, first of all, is there enough demand there because X amount of people signed up? Let's say you want to get 300 people to sign up over the course of 3 months, or potentially more people, 500, 1,000. I'm not sure what the right number is for you, so you have to think about that. But if you have that milestone set, then you know that, okay, there is enough demand. Also, there's something inherent about this process for you, which is, do you have the wherewithal of going through all of the rigor and steps to do that, to show the demand, before you go on to do the more harder thing, which is going to be to actually build the product, and then going on to the next series of steps. So it's a good way to control the risk side of it, not only from your spending, how much you go spend on something, but how ready you are to make that jump. Okay, so that's what I would do. I have not created a product as such, but dealing with a lot of RFPs, or requests for proposal, working with a lot of software vendors, this is, and especially startups, this is the kind of approach that they would typically take. They don't want to go and spend too much before they know there's a demand for that. Okay. All right. Hopefully that will be helpful for you. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can get me on the Facebook. All right. Next one. Marco Antonio. We have a question. It looks like a couple questions that have come in. What do you do every day, actions, that make you a better leader? Okay, and then Marco Antonio owns a destination management company in Colombia, taking care okay, yep. I want to do things that can help me be a better leader. Great. Okay, so some of the things that I'm doing on a regular basis. First of all, getting involved. Kudos to you, you're asking questions. You're already going down that path, right? The fact that you're asking this question shows that already inherently you want to be a good leader, you're trying to grow, you're engaging with, what I would call the next important thing is find mentors that are going down that path, that are farther along, that can share information with you, so that way you can become a better leader. So by asking this question, you're going to get so many answers from all of these different varieties from the different mentors, and you'll be able to pick and choose what's going to work best for you. But there's going to be some common themes. So education is the big one. You'll hear another one, which is communication. Your ability to communicate with your team, with your clients, with how you're communicating on the internet. It sounds like you probably have a big presence through internet. So how you're communicating, the themes and the topics and the tone, being really good about how you're communicating is going to be important. And then also from a leadership perspective is most leaders are involved in solving problems, clearing obstacles. At different stages, your leadership capacity is going to grow and change. Early on, you're wearing so many hats. Sometimes you're an owner-operator. Sometimes you might have a team. If you're at the team stage, that's different than, where you've got a COO, where you've got more people in the organization that you have to manage, and then you need a chain of command. So it's going to change over time, but in general, the principle here is clearing obstacles. You're going to need to be able to solve problems and be able to help the team get to achieving the objective and the mission of the organization, which leads me to the next thing. Every good leader has a vision, right? They have a vision. They know what they're orienting the North Star for everybody on the team. So company goals and objectives, their mission, their vision, company goals and objectives, and being able to make that clear and continue to share that so everyone keeps moving in that direction. Without that clear communication around that and a clear vision, you'll find that the teams start to drift and not moving all in unison in the right direction and where you want it to go. And that is a product of a leader who maybe is not expressing what that vision is enough, or has not been very clear in their communication about that, and is not measuring how the progress of the organization is going through their company goals and objectives. So you got to be really good about those things. The education, continued education will always be there. Your communication, the style, the tone, all the values that you have, making sure that part is clear, and then clearing obstacles, and lastly, being very clear about what the vision is, the mission, the company goals, and the objectives. Okay? All right, moving on to the next one, also from Marco Antonio. How do I know if I should focus on just my business or get involved with new businesses or other projects? Okay, very good. There are, let's see, what is your take as an entrepreneur about new businesses in addition to your own, and whether you should or can get involved or even investing in new businesses or projects of others? Okay, so the first part in my experience is this, that when I was growing the business initially, before I was 7 figures, if I had my focus on too many different things, what would happen is no one thing would really grow. And I found that out through going through about 5 years of experiencing that before I got a mentor that told me this, to really focus on one thing. You may hear a lot of rhetoric on the internet around you should have 7 streams of income, and they leave out a context of that conversation because they just slice and dice these things to get people's views. When you hear that type of rhetoric, 7 streams of income, while it is true, but it's not true initially. It's only after a certain stage where you've grown at least you've grown your business such that it makes $1 million in a year. Then when you have that and you also have a team that's running that, those 2 major milestones are there, you may want to consider what to do with this extra capital as a result of the business. See, I don't know your full financial situation with all that, but I would say, at least in my experience, very focused on one business, grow that business to be $1 million a year or more. Focus in on what it takes to be the leader and build a team, have the team operating that business, and when that thing is cash flowing for you, now it makes sense to start building out another avenue, okay? Because you're going to want to do something with that wealth, right? As the business grows, it's generating capital, and it's your responsibility to manage that capital and do things with it. That's when people, entrepreneurs, start investing into other companies. Prior to that, it's very hard to really grow a business to get to that level. Okay. There's an example that I had with this, which is, I want you to think about like a magnifying glass. I think I read this in a book a long time ago. I think it's a very simple read called Rhinoceros Success. And it gave an example there where you have a magnifying glass, and if you take the magnifying glass and if you remember as a kid, maybe taking the magnifying glass and the sun was out and you just kind of like focused it into one point, you could actually start a little fire from just using the sun and the magnifying glass. Okay? And so the important part, or the takeaway from that, is to focus in one direction such that you can really see that part grow. Because if you're moving it around, you never actually you warm up a lot of things, right? If you just keep focus on this, you're spread too far, you're never really going to get one that really gets you to the 7 figures and then really starts to be a cash cow for you. Okay? So that's been my experience as well, and what my mentors told me. So hopefully you can take something from that as well. Okay. Oh, we have another question from you as well, Marco Antonio. Is there anything you have read or listened to lately that you found useful as an entrepreneur that you think I could benefit from? Yes. As I mentioned before, part of being a good leader is continued education. I would recommend joining a book club. I did this recently as part of Joel's Brotherhood group. They have a subgroup in there that's a book club, and that's been pretty awesome because we're just constantly taking in different information and learning different topics in a wide variety of things that weren't even directly related to business and entrepreneurship, like just a focus on health, for example. Well, that's pretty important to all the other aspects of being able to manage your business, because you got to be healthy, right? So any number of topics can be really beneficial for you as an entrepreneur. I think joining a book club can really help with that. But some of the books I've been reading, $1 million Sales and $100 Million Sales, $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. he really has simplified and distilled these two subject areas down very nicely to understand, with lots of visuals that are there as well. Okay, so I'd recommend that. Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. It's a book about scaling and growing, and oftentimes we find ourselves trying to do too many things, like because we know how to do them, versus finding who's the right person to go and do that. And so it unlocked a lot in my growth, because I was an owner-operator, and now I'm moving to being just the owner and not the operator, right? So finding the who can go do that body of work, who can manage these different aspects of the business. It really is going to depend where you're at in your journey on how much of that who you can assign, but the principle should still be the same. If you can't do it now, then, and you're wearing a lot of the hats, what do you need to do in order for you to get to that point? And that's the lesson you have to learn, so then you can do that, right? It's still the same principle where you need to get to. Who Not How, Dan Sullivan, check that out. And I found myself pretty often here listening to podcasts, like just find ones that are important to you. One of them that I have is Lex Fridman, and there's such a wide variety of topics that he covers there in depth. He does not sit at just the surface level. He doesn't think about it just from like highly technical aspects, but a very humanistic, human, emotional type of approach blended there, and a diversity of different thoughts and in the way that he asks the questions and the people that he has on his podcast. So I listen to Lex. I found myself recently listening more to Lex Fridman. Okay, but join a book club. I highly recommend that. You'll get all kinds of information on a regular basis, and be trying to fill the mind. Input is output. That is the principle here. If you feed yourself with good nourishment, whether that's food or information, the output should be expected to be a lot better than not feeding yourself with good information, or from a health aspect, not taking care of yourself and just eating a bunch of junk food all the time, right? So high quality input equals high quality output. So I'm glad that you're thinking about that and continuing to sharpen the saw, as they say. All right, next question is for Rohit Gupta. All right, Rohit, how would you spend a business line of credit in an early stages of your business? I have an online and retail location, exotic snacks and drinks business. My brother got approved for a $10K business line of credit, which we're waiting for the deposit. I want to use it to grow my e-commerce side as it's lacking. What should I spend on to grow my business? Okay, Rohit, I am not sure I can share a full experience on this. I have not taken out any line of credit. As part of bootstrapping my business, I was able to manage it in a way that allowed me to get to 7 figures. And I think there was, in doing so, what I learned and focused on in that is, what are the principles that I need to learn in order for me to manage it in a way that I don't need to go get a line of credit. I'm not saying a line of credit is bad. By any, it can actually speed things up in a business, but I personally have not taken a line of credit in my business, and I felt strongly about doing it that way because I wanted to make sure that I had I've learned the lessons and the aspects of management and find creative ways to grow the business without necessarily tapping onto a line of credit where I'll have to pay an interest on that, right? Because not only you're going to have to pay that back, plus there'll be some degree, whatever the interest rate is there. So for my risk tolerance, better or worse, I chose not to do that. So I can't really tell you fully from an experience perspective, but what I can share with you is maybe just the mindset around it, and maybe some questions that you can ask. Like if I'm in that scenario, I would hold on spending it and try to answer some questions, like come up with really creative ways of increasing sales without spending more money. How can you get $10,000 more in profit? That's what I would be trying to figure out. How do I need to raise prices? How can I do things where maybe it won't cost me much, but it won't cost me in terms of dollars much more, but probably more of my time. Is there a way that I can have the type of, like, can I find the right types of things to do to grow the business in a way that can generate another $10,000 such that you don't need to necessarily take out a line of credit? Okay, so asking questions like, how can I increase my sales without spending any more money, and come up with like 30 different ways. Like, just don't stop coming up with ways. Like, create a list and just keep coming up with more and more and more ways. And I found that exercise, whenever I've done that, there are very creative aspects of the mind that will come up that, you can then take those and, try to execute on them such that you don't have to necessarily take out money to go and execute it. Okay, I know maybe I'm not as qualified to answer that question because I haven't taken out that line of credit, but that's what I'd be thinking about. One area that I am very, I have learned to be very okay with in spending money is around education and mentorship. That is what has accelerated me faster than I would have otherwise. So if I had to spend if I had to take out a loan, I would be looking at how do I increase the education so that way I can, grow this business faster. Because really it's not that having the 10,000, to having that there is going to help you. It's what are you going to do with it and how are you going to learn from that. And if you can take some of that to put towards a very focused set of learning, then you should be able to see a larger ROI, because the ROI on that spend is decades of things in the future, right? Decades of growth in the future. So education and mentorship is something I would always spend some amount of money on, because it's the knowledge of how to do those things is what you're really after, right? Okay. All right. And another question from Rohit: how do you get comfortable with confrontation? All right. I'm not a confrontational guy, and I give up easily when it comes to confrontation. I'll go back and forth with someone, but eventually give in and not say everything I want to say. I avoid confrontation as much as I can and don't want to keep repeating that. Okay, so the question is, how do I become comfortable with confrontation? I think what the essence of this is more around core belief systems. So I think it's about the reorientation of our thoughts and our expectations. Like confrontation it's opposing viewpoints. It may not even be completely opposing. Maybe it's aligned, but not exactly. There's disparate parts of it. Okay. What I have found is that a reorientation of our thoughts and expectations really help. So whenever I think about a confrontation, I think about where is the misalignment? Is it in our values? Where is, what is it that we're not aligned on? And confrontation, in essence, is the rub of getting there to an alignment. And so I would say that I mean, if you're constantly in confrontation, that's not good. You don't want to be in confrontation all the time. And in fact, sometimes maybe you just want to pick and choose the battles. That maybe that's what you're doing here. Okay. But if you feel like you're not getting all of the things that you need to communicated, then I would say that you do need to make sure that you're heard, right? So it sounds to me like there's something there's a reason why you're not saying everything, just to avoid the confrontation. Think about it more of acting with integrity. Okay. Being integrous with yourself and with the other person, and that what is there really to be a fear about when you're acting with integrity? So, and that again is just a reorientation of the way that you're perceiving, a confrontation. I tend to look at it as this is part of the normal rub, but I have an overarching integrity in what I'm doing. The reason why I'm coming with a particular viewpoint is because in my belief systems, I am moving with integrity towards those things, right? And somebody else may have a different idea about that, and there's going to be a little rub that's there. To me, that's just part of getting to a successful outcome, and continuing to find like a win-win scenarios there. I deal with this all the time in my business because we have a diversity of thought, and that's actually a good thing. We want opposing viewpoints. We want to have different perspectives, but more importantly, everybody needs to be heard, and we all need to be able to express what we're thinking, because maybe it is an awesome viewpoint that you might have, Rohit, but you're not communicating it, so the other person never gets that opportunity to maybe change their perspective around it. So there's an affirmation that I told myself, or I've kind of been working on for a long time, and this has helped me pretty much remove fear out of my mind. And so whenever I'm feeling that type of thing, I have this saying: all things both good and bad lead to my success. All things both good and bad lead to my success. The reason why I've kind of adopted this in my mindset is because I'm very oriented into finding the success in the end. Sometimes it may feel bad or it may feel good. There may be rub in other, it may not be just this perfect straight path. So I'll tell myself, all things both good and bad lead to my success. Okay, and that's really helped me move past fear and reorient myself and my thoughts, and just, it's a level of acceptance that, hey, everything's going to be fine anyways. It's all going to be good, because all things are going to, even if it turns out bad, there's something that's going to be learned from there, and that's going to lead to my success. So maybe you can adopt that into your mindset as well. All things both good and bad lead to my success. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have made it through all of the questions here. I would encourage everyone to continue to please submit questions, get engaged. We have lots of mentors. I can speak from my own experience and love to share that with everyone in AO, that I'm a product of just asking questions, getting engaged, and this has really accelerated me in my journey. All of the coaches before me have imparted their wisdom, and it took me asking questions, even when I felt uncomfortable about them, or thought maybe it's a dumb question or whatever. We're all on this journey. We're all learning things, and there are people that are here with extended hand to come and help you, but we don't know how to help you if you don't ask the questions and get engaged. Okay, so please feel free to reach out. We've got a portal. AO has lots of coaches and mentors. There's no sense in reinventing a wheel. Take the knowledge, execute on it, and you can actually accelerate your journey faster than our coaches, myself, you can actually move faster if you engage with us. Okay? So, with that, thank you everyone. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.